Hi, this is Damien and this is my MBA journey at Melbourne Business School. And the topic I'm going to cover off today is going to be around leadership, working as a team, and self-reflection as an outcome. So, just to give a recap, I went to bed this morning at about 2 or 3 o'clock after doing some more additional readings last night. I woke up this morning about 8 o'clock and there was no chance I was going to get to the gym. I just basically jumped straight in the shower and had got changed to go straight to go to university. So today we covered off on we done some exercises. So a couple of those exercises as group activities was around the first one was around working as a team, and how we work is in being assigned particular titles or roles that aren't necessarily within the scope or our skill sets that we would ordinarily have. That was the purpose of it. To put us in a position or in a role that we ordinarily wouldn't be in, and to see how we function as part of our group, our syndicate, in performing the task. So the task was somewhat simple, but complex, in that what we did as part of the task was be given a number of materials to work with, and as part of that we had an egg, and the objective was to drop the egg from 2 stories, and to ensure that the egg doesn't break or crack, using the materials that we were provided. And there was obviously some rules around that, for example, that half the egg had to be exposed. So, and rules like that. So, we went through the whole process. It was around how you come together and come up with ideas as a group. So, looking at the whole, forming, storming, norming, forming, storming, norming, and performing. I think those are the ones. I'd have to go back and check. And how you do that as a group, and how that can result, especially the storming, where conflict can come into play, because everyone's got their own ideas and thought around how the task can be carried out. So there were some interesting observations that came out of that. One person in our group was assigned the role of observing us and taking down notes for a particular part of that, where it identified such things as how we engaged with the other team members. For example, how often did we give compliments or give positive feedback to the other members of the team? How often did we interrupt other members of the team when talking? How often we spoke directly to the team as a group, and how often we spoke to other members of the team on an individual one-to-one basis. The results of that were very interesting, and as an outcome of that, I seen that I held back a bit. I'm an extrovert, but I'm also somebody who's agreeable. So that's what came out of it. I realised that I didn't go in for conflict. I held back. I didn't give as much input, be it directly to the team or or one-on-one, even though my role was to actually allocate tasks and to designate roles, activities to individual members of the team as part of my title. So I actually probably wasn't as strong in that ability to do so as I possibly could have, especially in the form of communication and on that side of it. So even though I did perform well as an engineer in assigning tasks, but I probably didn't communicate. So I have an area there where I need to improve around my communication skills as a leader in that respect. What we also noticed was there are people in the group who identified that they had certain personality traits that they self-assessed that they had these personality traits which were a weakness, and that when they were in the group dynamic, even though they knew that this was their own weakness and they discussed it, that attribute, that trait came through very strongly. So it was very interesting to see that being played out to the point that it was very prominent, and the person had to be identified to, other members had to identify to that person that trait was coming through. So it was interesting. So it's and people had positive traits in their role in that role. That was a trait that was very positive in their role. So it was interesting in that regard. When we actually performed the task of dropping this egg, the other thing that came out was when we had the other syndicates perform the task, was the diversity of thought and ways to think out the design of the deliverable, which was to create something that would prevent the egg from breaking or cracking. That was one part. So that was performance. A team came up with something that was not even something I had in my sphere of thought to come up with, and it was the ingenuity was pretty incredible. Now the other side is of that task, apart from just performance, was around aesthetics. So part of that aesthetics was was basically a presentation, a 2-minute presentation on why people should vote for our product. So we had somebody in our team, even though they came from a marketing background, they let somebody else stand up and speak and do that presentation. So, and that person had done it, did the presentation. They'd done a very good job of it. But at the same time, they realised that in their own reflection that they probably didn't, there were certain areas where the presentation didn't go as well as they anticipated. So, but the benefit of that was we have somebody in our team who has a marketing background. So that person has the ability to tap into the network of people who are doing this, doing the MBA, and through the network learn from others, our peers. So this is one of the benefits of doing the MBA, is that it's not the one thing that was put to me was that half the value of doing the MBA is the network that you meet. And I assumed in my thought that the network was about getting a career or getting a job. The other part that what I didn't understand was the peer learning from the people in your network who can bring attributes, experience, and knowledge that we can learn from, because it's and introduce into our own skill sets and learnings from them as experts in areas that we are not, don't have as strong a experience expertise as they do. So we can learn from each other from that basis. So this is one of the things I've come to learn, that the peer network is not just about getting a job or making contacts. It's about also the education and learning that can be gained from your peers, from their breadth and depth of knowledge and experience in other areas. So pretty important in that regard. The other activity that we done was around a negotiation. So this negotiation is something that I've previously done before, so I was familiar with it. What happened was I was the counter person on the other side of the negotiation hadn't necessarily done this particular exercise, and the exercise was around activity was around for the negotiation to reach an agreement given with a limited resource where we both wanted that resource, and we had to think about how we could enter into that negotiation and both come out and come out with an outcome that was positive. Now, whether that was positive to my side or whether that was positive to her side, or preferentially, it was a win-win scenario. The ultimate outcome of a negotiation is a win-win scenario. It's not always the case, but it's the ultimate outcome if it can be attained, where it also creates synergies as an outcome. So because I was familiar with the scenario, so half the scenario was that I wanted, we both were after a material, and I wanted it for a life-saving purpose. The other person also wanted it for a life-saving purpose. The thing was, there was only a limited supply and there wasn't enough for both of us to have. And what we realized, now, as part of that, my need was immediate. We were also already in conflict, myself and the other person that was in their role. There was legal disputes occurring, which between us, separate to the negotiation of the material that we were both wanting. So my thing was to ask certain facets of questions around what did they actually need of this material. So how can I put it? Think of a chair and table set. I looked at it and said, well, there's a chair and tables. What I actually want from this chair and table set is I don't actually need the table, but I want the chairs. What do you want from buying these? What does the other person want from these chairs and tables? And ultimately, if they turn and go, well, I don't actually need the chairs, but I do want the table, then we can come to a win-win scenario where we go, okay, well, there's a chair and table set that somebody selling. You're wanting the table. I'm wanting the chairs. Let's come to an arrangement where we can buy the table and chairs, and I can take away the chairs and you can take away the table. That's a win-win scenario. The other person in the negotiation was very cagey, if you will, because of the legal disputes. So what I was trying to do was ask questions around what do you want from the product, what do you from these materials, what do you need from it, and how they were perceiving that is, even though because I was asking all these questions, was that they were perceiving that I was trying to take from them intellectual property of what they were wanting to use the material for, in terms of the product they were trying to create from the material that was life saving. So I was trying to industrial espionage, if you will, trying to get information from them about their intellectual property, and so on that basis, she didn't disclose, the other person didn't disclose the information that was required to understand what specific part of the material they needed for us to reach a point of negotiation. So that was interesting. So even though I was asking questions, the other person perceived that I was asking those questions for my benefit in terms of trying to extract intellectual property, given our past experience where there was legal disputes between us. So even though this was a separate matter, there was past experience as an outcome of that. So that's something I've learned. So even though I was asking the questions, perhaps I should have been more clear about what our intent and purpose was for wanting that material and why I was asking that question. So that was a learning thing from my side. Now, when it came to the time that we spoke up about whether we reached a negotiation on, we didn't, because we didn't disclose to each other what exactly we were both wanting from the material. And later on, that person came, and I made the comment as part of the group discussion, was that even though I was asking the other person, they were not inclined to give me that information because they were their fear was that I was trying to extract from them the intellectual property to steal, if you will, their product, or to create their product that they already had, were trying to make also. So, and the person came up afterwards and said, "Oh, look, the reason why I was very cagey was because we had this legal dispute." I said, "Well, there you go. That's a learning outcome of doing this exercise. I also learned that I probably didn't disclose to you that my reason for wanting the product and how it could have benefited both of us if I was more open to you about not just about asking questions but also disclosing to you about my side. So I was possibly a bit cagey on my side as well, and as an outcome of that, there was no win-win scenario. So this is all part of the learning and the experience. The other activity we done was around a conflict in the workplace, and it was a role play, and I done it with somebody else, and I had one person's role play story, and the other person on the other side had their role play story. And the role play story for mine side was that this other person was not contributing to the team, and as an outcome of that, they were underperforming in the eyes of the syndicate, the team. And my approach was my reason for calling a meeting with this person was to make them aware of that we felt that they were not pulling their weight as part of the team, part of the syndicate, the team. But what actually happened was I opened by saying we wanted to have a meeting, and the reason I asked you here was to discuss how the group work was going. And the first question I asked was, ask them what did they feel about how it was going from their side with the group work, the syndicate work. Suddenly, this person came back and said that they felt that they were being ignored in the team, that their contributions were being not included, They were being isolated from out of the team, the other people. Their contribution, even though they were speaking up, they were being ignored. There was possible reasons they felt that the reason that they were being ignored was because they were smarter, and that they came from, potentially, there might have been some phobia around this particular person, based upon their their personal attributes. So a phobia, and therefore there was, they were being excluded from the group, in because this person was highly intelligent, but we were disregarding their input, and we were also not including them in other activities outside of the group, such as going for a coffee, and not inviting them. So all of a sudden I was caught off guard. I'm going, this is not in my sheet. Everything this person is saying is not, I don't have this information. All of a sudden the reality kicks in when you're talking about, where a group of, this person was highly intelligent, didn't contribute much as far as words in group discussion, was offering up information, but at the same time we were, in the group, extroverts, very extroverted, and gregarious in our discussions. So we were potentially not allowing that person into the discussion. So that was an interesting perception of the other person's side of the story when you actually sit down and have a conversation. So what we agreed from that outcome was that we needed to talk with the other team members. We needed to give that person feedback as to why we did or didn't include their contributions. Also, from there on in, I made a conscious awareness offer, guarantee that if we did go out for coffees or go out for other activities, that we would actively invite that person to join us. Whether they chose to or not would be their story, would be their preference. But the offer would be made to be a part of it. The funny thing is, I've actually been in workplaces where certain people in the office would go and do activities as a particular people, to the exclusion of others, and there was it was very identifiable that the people that were being asked to go on this were of a specific group, if you will. They could be when it came to demographic, is probably the best way to put it, a particular demographic, and they weren't inviting other people who were not part of that demographic along to the lunches. And when I asked why we weren't inviting these other people, we were told, the response was, well, they're not part of us, they don't need to, and if they wanted to do their thing, they can do their own. So yes, this is the things that the whole reflective part of doing all these activities is to open your mind. So the theory side is, you got these personality traits, you got extroverts, you got introverts, you got and there is conflict in the workplace, or there's conflict and needs to be managed. The reality is, you start to apply this to your own experiences, and start to consider how this may impact your decisions in the future, and to make you aware of them when you do. So yes, so part of that was some of the things that we did as part of that. We've also got our syndicate work that we're actually doing, the actual syndicate work as part of this. Part of that syndicate work was to identify our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats around our own personality traits and leadership styles. As part of that, we are going to include a reflection of our self-reflection of our self-awareness now, based upon the personality traits that we have after doing the assessment, using the tool of the Big Five to understand what traits we have and what those, based upon those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we've put through, a reflective piece to say, what have we learned from that? One of the things I've learned probably from mine, or I have learned from mine, is that something I knew was that I was an extrovert in terms of I've done previous my Briggs Myers, and I knew that I was an extrovert from doing those. What I didn't realize was that I'm somebody who's also very liked, and I'm just a likable person. And what I found was part of the reason why I'm a likable person is because I'm very agreeable. That is, I am somebody that will I'll agree with to a degree, for most part, with the people in, and I avoid, as an outcome of that, being agreeable means that I will avoid conflict. Now, the problem with that, the issue with that, or threat, is that by being agreeable, by avoiding conflict, I can be perceived as being spineless, or not having an opinion on my own in the context of when entering in a conflict or discussion, a debate. So, and the takeaway from that from me is that I need to realise that do I really, as a leader and also in personal life, do I need to be liked? Is it important to be liked as a leader than it is to be seen as fair? So when you put it in that context, I need to probably speak up a bit. I need to speak up when things are being put forward, and probably an example of that was I was part of a group of people, and one person in the group turned around, who comes from an IT background, said that their company was actually wanting to hire more women into their department, in their IT department, because they basically don't have any women in their IT department. They want to ensure there's some gender diversity, and as part of that, essentially what this person said was any hire of personnel into the department would be basically only women. And this person was not accepting of the fact that this should be acceptable, that hires should be just women, even though on the basis that the decision that they made for the basis of hiring women was because there wasn't any women in their IT department. And this person felt that, obviously it was a he, he felt that the person being hired should be decided upon merit, based upon their skill and experience and what value they'll bring into the team, not based upon gender. What I realised was I didn't confront that person or enter into debate with that person. I avoided conflict, even though the reasons I know the reason why they want to introduce women into that role is not just because, yes, it's great if they have the experience and knowledge, but what you need to see is that there aren't any other women. Therefore, you're not going to see role models of women in that space in IT, and for improvements in knowledge and diversity of thinking. That person is someone who comes from a different background, i.e., this person is a woman versus somebody in a group of all men, can potentially offer a different opinion or perspective based on their traits that, as where it can be seen as what they can contribute from their perspective. So, to the team in that regard. There's also the role model feature. There's obviously not a lot of women for using their department as a generalized overview of the industry as far as IT. There's not a lot of women in IT. If there are more women put into those roles in IT and move up and into management roles as well, and leaders in IT, then what they'll be seen as role models and by other young women, girls, that there is a place for women to be in positions, in jobs in IT. And that creates a new perspective, a new way of thinking about where this comes into play, where as an outcome of that, because I wasn't, because I was agreeable, I didn't go into conflict, I avoided it, I didn't speak up, this person went away and felt that they were correct. I didn't offer a contra opinion that was supporting of the reason why there should be more women in IT or in working in IT, or in the reasons why it might benefit having a women in the IT department. So that was very self-reflective for myself, that by being agreeable, to be trying to be liked is not necessarily being seen as fair. So that was my experience. I didn't end up getting around to doing an interview with one of my peers of the student cohort, because I stayed back and was talking to the lecturer around leadership. So the person had already left, so I didn't get around to doing a interview with them. So we'll look to do an interview with them later on. I do have class for social responsibility and ethics this coming Thursday, which is when we're also going to be meeting up with our syndicate to continue doing more work around the group work, the assignment. So yes, perhaps based upon that, I might catch up with that person and do an interview with them sometime while we're doing that, because it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday that we're doing social responsibility and ethics as the next half credit or half unit module that we're going to be doing. So yes, I do want to incorporate other people from my peers, my student cohort, to get their feedback on and perspectives of the MBA, not just my own. This is while this is my MBA journey at Melbourne Business School, this is also their journey. They're doing, and my perspective of my side of the story could be very different to what their side of the story is when it comes to what they think of the MBA, part-time MBA at Melbourne Business School. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I need to be including them into my journey, because they're a part of it as well, and they're sharing that journey with me, and I'm sharing that journey with them. So their input's valuable. So again, another learning experience, why it's important to self-reflect on our personality traits, and to incorporate others' thoughts and experience and knowledge back into our own, into my own uh, uh, skill sets, and where I can benefit from that for the benefit of others as well. So yes, I did. I came home. I went and done some shopping, because I obviously all this weekend I have been doing the MBA. So I came home, done some shopping, and bought some groceries so I can actually eat. I then went to the gym. Got my hour workout. I've actually stepped up my workout, so I'm now doing, of the 30 minutes on the treadmill, I've done 15 minutes of jogging or running with 1 minute intervals, and I'll increase that 1 minute each day, so that by the end of probably September, I will be jogging or running for a full 30 minutes at about 11 kilometers. So yes, and I've started to, for my resistance training, I've taken it from doing, I was doing, so at the very beginning, when I started doing so 14 days ago, or 15 days ago, I was doing my workout training, was for the resistance training, was doing two sets of the following: 5 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, 30-second planks on both sides for the abs or abdominals, and also for the back, a plank. Then doing 30 seconds for quad and ab raise, so a leg and ab raise. Then doing 30 seconds of Superman, so that's a hamstring and the middle of the back raise, so they're called Supermans. So for 30 seconds, and then doing 10 tricep push-ups, and then doing 10 squats, and then 20 calf raises. I then went from doing 2 sets of those to 3 sets of those. So that's what I've been doing for the last week, doing 3 sets of those. And now I've increased from the repetitions. So I'm still doing 3 sets. I've gone from doing 5 push-ups to 7 push-ups. I've gone from doing 20 sit-ups to 25 sit-ups, still with 3 sets for all these, to 25 sit-ups. I've gone from 30 seconds to 45 seconds for planks on both sides, the abdominal plank and a back plank. I've also gone to 45 seconds for the leg and ab raise, and also 45 seconds for the Supermans. Then done from 10 to 15 tricep push-ups, then to 15 squats, and then 30 calf raises, from 20 to 30 calf. So gone from 10 to 15 squats, and then from 20 to 30 calf raises. So I did notice it, increasing the reps, but maintaining the sets. So my body is feeling it. But what will happen is I will become accustomed to that. So I've done that this afternoon because I was too tired this morning to work out. So yes, I then made dinner and cooked up. I've done some food prep. I'm going to put together my meals for more so all together. So I've cooked up all that and we'll put them into food prep for through the week, because I'm not going to have time to cook food through the week. So I've done my prep of cooking the food. I'll put them into containers, so that I basically just need to grab them out of the fridge or freezer and take them to first on my lunch, take it to work, and then for after I finish work, I'll have the dinner with me. So have it ready for dinner. And so I'd have that dinner before I go and do either study or go to classes of an evening, because evening classes start at 6 o'clock. So I need to have something to eat before I go into that. We're not allowed to eat during the classes, so I need to eat prior to that, because the classes then go till 9:15, so from 6 o'clock to 9:15. So I need to have all that prepped and to reduce time. While I was cooking dinner, I put on some washing, put that in the dryer, and also done some ironing while everything was cooking and washing, and to have everything ready. So yes, it's now 12:35 a.m. in the morning, so I'm still doing late. I haven't done any readings. Been working on it, our assignment, our syndicate assignment. So that was more of a preference there, and I had to get stuff ready for food prep for the rest of the week. So yes, that's what I've been up to. Okay, guys, this is Damien Foley signing out. This is my MBA journey at the Melbourne Business School. You can follow me at YouTube, on YouTube at Damien Foley, or on my website www.damienfoley.com/MBA, or you can also follow me on Instagram at DG Foley. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap up for tonight, post this up, get some sleep, because I have work in the morning, and I have to leave here by 8 o'clock, so 7.5 hours. So I'm going to probably get maybe 7 hours sleep. I have milk, so I can have my Weet-Bix in the morning. Yes, I'm going to be one very happy person if I can have my Weet-Bix. That's great. Hopefully I can get up maybe a bit earlier, maybe 6 o'clock to maybe 6:30 to get a workout in the morning. That'd be ideal if I could. Maybe not, given I've stayed up too late. But we'll see. I'll let you know tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Bye.